Yo, what's up? Welcome back to a new episode of Studio Time with Ryos. And folks, for today's episode, it's feeling like a progressive house day. I don't know what it is, but your boy's feeling inspired. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. Yo, what's up, guys? Future Ryos here. So listen, while I was editing this video, I had a slightly different melody idea. So I wound up going back, adjusting the melody, and I love the way it came out. So the final product that you're gonna hear at the end when I listen back to it is going to be the adjusted version. But while I'm working on it, you're gonna hear a slightly different melody. And that's just because after I finished filming, I went back to it and I was like, I have a slightly different idea and I'm really happy with the way it came out. So hope you guys enjoy. All right, let's make some progressive house. Well, a lot of times when I'm making a progressive house idea from scratch, the first thing I like to do is to get a vibe down, for lack of a better word. I'm smiling because if you don't already know, I love the word vibe, and I tend to say it a lot. But in all seriousness, I love to start with some sort of like atmosphere or something to establish a sort of mood for the track. Shameless plug. I mean, it's not shameless. It's my channel. What are we talking about here? But I dropped a new Patreon pack, as I have for the last these many months. Anywho, but this guy, I'm really happy with the way this guy sounds. And I think it might be a nice base to work off of today. So my sort of roadmap, if you will, is I'm going to use this atmosphere, try to create some nice chords around it, try to create a nice bed that I can write a nice melody on, hopefully. And then if and when I get a nice melody, a nice euphoric melody, then we'll make a nice progressive house drop out of it. I think a piano might be nice. Let's go ahead and use Serum. I've actually been liking Serum's pianos. They're pretty dope. Let's see. So this is a pretty nice piano sound. I think what I would do to make it like suitable for a break, and by the way, don't mind my chord playing. I'm just literally hitting random notes. Can I play a proper chord? Let's see. A little C major. I'm getting distracted already. Lock in. All right. I want to add some processing on this guy. I want to make it so that it sounds a little bit more low-key. I could just use a simple filter, but sometimes I like using Origin, actually. So we're going to turn off... let's turn this off. Let's turn this off. Turn this off. Slightly different vibe. It's same kind of idea. We're just taking out the top, but it just does it in a different way. All right, now before we actually start making the chord progression, I do want to see if this atmosphere sounds good in C minor. Just because personally, I've been wanting to make another song in C minor. I mean, yeah, that sounds dope. So let's see. Oof. Okay, see, that sounds dope, but my problem is that sounds a little too mean, and I wanted to make something a little happier today. I've been making so many, like, darker / moodier tracks lately, and it's summer, guys. We gotta make something a little happier. So you know what? Maybe let's go back to B minor. B minor to me tends to be a little bit more, a little happier, I guess. And let's get rid of this bass line, because I think the chords that we're about to ensue were going to be way too epic. I want to make something a little happier. So maybe if that's the case, let's start with D major. I think that'll be a nice idea. So let's go here. I can't help myself. This is crazy. Okay, well, based on these notes, this looks like a progression that would be F sharp minor. So if I just took this and then went to B minor. I like that. I like that. Listen, it's moody. It's not quite super happy, but that's just the style of music I like. So, yeah, this is epic. Okay. Let's get a nice bass in. Yeah. Very nice. You know what? Let's, I want to filter this just a little bit more here. Maybe let's switch this to 24. Yeah, it's better. Okay. Okay, loving the direction so far, but one thing that I want to do, I want to adjust the piano sound slightly. I'm having second thoughts about Origin. It's making the mid-range like, it's almost like too pronounced, and I want the piano to sound a little bit more sunk, if that makes sense. So I'm going to try to disable it, and then just use a simple EQ to cut off the highs. Yeah, if you go back and forth, peep this. Yeah, the best way to put it is that the low mids and mids are way too pronounced, and sometimes that's dope, but right now, I don't want this piano to be like that pronounced. I want it to be more as like a bed. Yeah, that's better. Okay. Okay, so dope vibe so far. Let's see if we can come up with a nice melody. Now, I'm thinking like a washed out kind of lead would be dope. I guess your sort of typical progressive house lead. So what I'm going to do actually, let's go back in time. Let's go to, we'll even use the retro skin. I want to go to Dance Volume 2. Where is that at? Do I have that? I do. Yeah, there were some classic leads here. I'm getting all nostalgic just looking at these preset names. Dude, I used to rinse Magnetron. I was like 13 years old. This is the only sound I ever used. There was another lead. I'm just trying to think quickly. I swear there, maybe it's Paradise. It was Paradise. Here we go. I was gonna say there was a lead that was like in between Magnetron and Angel One, and it was Paradise. So the thing I like about this lead is it's like buzzy, but it still has like that classic Nexus, classic super soft feel. So I don't know if we're going to wind up using it, but I think it might be dope to just use it to try to make some melodies at the bare minimum. And let's also just get a little bit of reverb on here. Just, you know, for funsies. I'm also thinking it'd be dope if we went like, if there was a chord to bring us to B, maybe A. Yeah. And then here can go. Oh, I did the chord change on the sampler channel. Oh, Madonna me. This sounds good. And then I guess the most obvious spot would be either probably F sharp, no? Ooh, I could actually just go back to G. Okay. So at this stage, normally in a production, once I'm happy with the chords and melodies and all that, which, by the way, I actually gave no thought to these chords, like no inversions or anything fancy, but they sound good, so let's not overcomplicate things. If I want to add more harmonies and inversions later, I could definitely do so. But what I was about to say is it's time to get the sound design going, so to speak. So I actually do like this sort of vintagey Nexus lead as our main lead, excuse me, so I think we work off of it. So let's start getting more layers in. The first layer that I'm going to attempt to get in, well, I'm going to open up Nexus because I'm 100% going to use that again. I also want to get in a sort of super clean synthy layer. I know that's an awful explanation, but I basically mean just a lead that is kind of your simple saw, like minimum or minimal to no detuning with a really crispy high end. I really like utilizing those in my stacks. And then another layer for transient, definitely. And then perhaps a layer that's like a guitar or something a little bit more organic. So I'm just opening a bunch of plugins just as like a preliminary thing. But let's start. So this is going to be our main guy, our main cat, if you will. Let's start with that synthy sort of boring layer. That's going to be pretty important. Now, I have a few in my back pocket that I tend to use from Spire. So let's test them. Let's see if they sound good here. That's not it, but that's dope. This is also awesome. Wasn't looking for it, but that's cash money. So let's go back now. We love a happy accident, a curated accident, if you will. But let's go ahead and let's get that sound that I was talking about originally. Yeah. This one's great. Dope. And then, yeah, let's get, what did I say? I said like a guitar or something, and then a transient layer. Okay, so here's what just transpired because I wasn't talking. I was looking for said pluck lead. Came across this guy. And then, yeah, opening the cutoff. It's kind of like an 80s Stranger Things kind of vibe. And it sounds dope. It's not the exact transient I was looking for, but I feel like it just fits this vibe pretty nice, I think. I really like these leads, actually. All right, I'm going to take 2 seconds. Let me organize everything, and then we'll go from there. Okay, I've used the restroom. I've organized the project. Let's get back to work. What should we do here? Okay, so we definitely can't go wrong with, like, a big, beautiful sort of pad. Could be a nice option. I'm just going to go ahead and just keep getting all my options in, and then we'll kind of curate from there. Now that I'm building more, that first pad that I selected, I think we could do better. I think it should be more trancy. It should be like more euphoric, just bigger. This sounds like a little too, I mean, it's called 1970s. I was going to say it sounds a little too vintagey. It's a really sick sound, but just not what we need right now. So let's try and get something that's way bigger. Like this. There goes Serum. Come on. All right. Well, we're going to continue to fight an uphill battle if we don't consolidate. So let's go ahead and do that now. All right, this sounds really sick. Now, there's two other things that I want to try. I want to try, if we listen carefully to this atmosphere, you hear this sort of movement that's baked into the sound. I want to add either a bass or a chord sound that also has that sort of 16th note movement to it. Probably adding a whole new sound altogether to do that. I also want to try adding movement through the dance piano. If I could have the dance piano maybe play the same exact rhythm as the leads, that'll also reinforce the leads, and I think that might sound nice. So I'm going to try that now. It is going to take a little time just to line up all the notes with my lead melody, but it might be worth it. So let's do that real quick. I'll probably fast forward through this in editing. Okay, so let's see how that sounds now. Now I have this idea. I want to create a sort of counter rhythm with the dance piano as opposed to it playing the exact same rhythm of the leads. As I was listening back to it, it sounds really dope, but I'm like, what if it was a little bouncier? So I'm going to go ahead and create a duplicate. We're going to try this idea out. So I basically want these sections to be slightly different. So to make it bouncy, I'm just going to offset this note. Yeah, and we're going to just make a whole separate rhythm here. So, like so. And this is going to be super consistent. It's just going to play this rhythm. Ba, 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 ba. Way better. See, as soon as the previous version came in, I was like, wait, what? No, the bouncy version is the move. I need a build snare right about now, no? Can I get a little all-in-one fill real quick? Put a classic boom kind of big snare right there, and then we're cooking. All right, so we'll copy over our leads. Getting kickstart going. Let's copy over the dance piano. And now with the synth chords, I also want to experiment with our new MIDI. For the pad, I would love if the cutoff was open, but we're in audio. So let me see if I can be lazy. Nah, I can't be lazy. Let's just quickly consolidate, or rather, let's bounce into audio a version of this pad where the cutoff is fully open. All right, now it's time for some cleanup. Let's go on the dance piano. Let's cut some lows, and we'll make a small dip in the low mids. Now, I definitely want to get some processing on the leads. I guess we could just do it now quickly. The big thing I want is compression. And it's usually a question how to compress beautiful progressive house leads, because you don't want to do anything too aggressive. Now, funny enough, I say that, and then I want to use Camel Crusher, but hear me out. Camel Crusher's compression sometimes is really good. I'll turn off the filter right away, turn off the distortion, and just use the compression. I kind of want to try Focus One as well, as opposed to Camel Crusher. So I'm just going to mute Camel Crusher real quick. We'll use Focus. This is another form of compression I like. Already way better. Yeah, way better. Another great thing is that I can just boost, add more body to the leads here. Very nice. And then now I want to get some delay to make this even more dreamy. There's obviously already a boatload of reverb coming from the individual synths themselves, but a little more never hurt anybody. All right, so just doing some balancing made the leads a little louder, made the chord group a little quieter, and now I feel comfortable enough where we can go ahead and start getting some bass sounds in. I'm immediately thinking about using my typical bass stack because, or rather, I have a few that I like to use a lot, but there's one in particular that I've used in my Memories remix, I've used it in my White Horses remix, and it usually works really good for these sorts of progressive house drops. I'm going to go ahead and just use it again because it is like a kind of signature sound of mine, if you will. And I want to use it just as a starting point. If I like the way it sounds in, great. If not, then I will go ahead and make it a little bit more custom, so to speak. But let's start there. Let's do that now. And I have to use the bathroom again. I've been drinking a lot of water. So let's get this going, and then I'm going to take a little break. Okay, so I've got the sounds pretty much all loaded up. Now I'm going to route them to this layer. And I'm at least going to move my sub on a separate channel after the fact, but I'm more eager to just test if this will even work. So let's go ahead. Let's grab my synth chords. And then I'm just going to steal the bass line and pop it on here. All right, so I am very happy with the way this is sounding. We've got a few more things to do. The synth group overall sounds really good. I do want to add a sort of atmospheric sound or drone sound that we can use in the drop. Maybe this one? And we're pretty close. We're in B minor, so we could just move this up one semitone. Needs to be completely reworked, though. So this needs to be have way less low mid-range, because I just want it to stay on top of everything else that I've got going over here. Much better. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It just adds like this euphoric feeling, which is super dope. It's called floating atmosphere. That's exactly what it sounds like. It sounds like I'm floating. Now, I hate to be a bit of a buzzkill. I don't want to go ahead and do the drops and effects, as I kind of mentioned. I want to instead work on the leads a little bit more. They're not 100% to my liking, and particularly it's the lack of transient that's really not doing it for me. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to open up another instance of Nexus. We can go ahead and we could put it in the lead group. This might work. This is a dope lead, and it's got a sick transient. Now, the only downside is things are getting out of control when it comes to the reverb and the delay. This is why most times I like doing it myself and not having the delay and the reverb on within the plugin. I'm going to see if I could just get away with removing the reverb and delay from this new transient lead that I'm adding and keeping it on everything else. Because I do like the overall vibe I have so far. I don't want to have to like redo that. It's funny, actually, a large portion of that over saturated reverb, if we'll call it that, is coming from my delay. So I'm going to just start by muting my delay. And I do get the feeling I need a little bit more sense of space here, but I'm not going to go crazy. It definitely sounds better without this. This was a little too much. But I'm happy because at least now we got that transient cutting through, and that was like really, really missing. Now the fun stuff, drums. I love, love, love programming drums. Even in progressive house, which sometimes could have like vanilla type of drums, like there's not all that much you could do. But it's still okay. I still have fun doing it. Let's go ahead and let's get... No, not big room. Not now, at least. Let's get, you know, a clean kick. Kick sounds good. Now... let me think for this drop arrangement. I feel like we need some energy. So in that case, one of the best options are on beat claps. Those tend to add a lot of energy. So let's go ahead. I love this one. Some rides going. Ride sounds dope. This clap, even though it's one of my favorite samples, it doesn't usually work as well with like super soft progressive house kicks. So I am going to change it to something different. Maybe this one will work better. Okay, sick. Now, we gotta do two things. I was gonna say, we gotta go rogue with some fills. We gotta go fill crazy. And then also, sometimes it's dope to layer like a straight noise ride with a sort of more typical ride. So this ride right here is a great example of one that maybe could also work with a straight noise ride. So let's see if that works. Sometimes it could be too much, but... it adds a little something extra, so I'm going to keep it. Now, I'm making a mental note because I want to do those fills that I was talking about. But the mental note is that the bass, specifically the top basses, need to cut through way more. They're definitely taking a back seat, and it's causing the energy to sort of be a little low. So that's just a mental note, but let's go ahead and get some fills in first, have some fun with the drum group, and then we can go and make the according tweaks. So in the meantime, though, let's get some cool fills going. This might be dope. So something I like to do, this is what I mean by having fun with the drums. I like to sort of mix and match, especially little fills that I've made, and kind of create little custom ones. This one's a little too bright, so I'm just going to go ahead and create a high shelf. And I need something to sort of glue everything together. Maybe this guy. Yeah, that sounds dope. This clap fill sounds dope right here. Yeah, sick. Let's get something to round off the sort of 4-bar phrase here. Maybe this. And then where's my halfway fill? That would be dope here. So I really like this sort of drum arrangement. My only gripe is that repeating this twice sounds a little loopy, if that makes sense. It sounds too much like it's, maybe predictable is a better word, which I don't like. It doesn't really fit. I like the idea of filling out each bar with some sort of little drum hit, though, to keep things interesting. What if we just do, like, some sort of clap fill? Ooh, maybe this guy. Okay, I love that, actually. There's one more I want to try, and it's this guy. This one might work really well, too. Ooh, I think that might be better. Yeah, you know what? This one sounds even better to me. But I don't want this to end here necessarily. So what I could do is I'll just steal a different sample, layer it here. Like, let's say this guy. So it won't feel necessarily like it's ending. Kind of like that. Yeah, it makes it blend in with the track better, which is cool. Okay, also another thing, just because I see it, I'm definitely going to want this guy. Nice diamond downlifter, as I call it. And then, oh, that percussion sound. Way too loud. I didn't even add it to the mixer. This should be off still. My bad. Ooh, yeah. I love this. Okay. This idea, so fire, but this is way too vanilla. Yeah, maybe this one will work better. Yeah, much better. There's one other key element that I'm missing in my drum group, and then we're going to move on. And that key element is going to be something that plays an even faster rhythm than 4 on the floor. Sometimes that could be 8th notes. Sometimes that could be 16th notes. I typically opt for 16th notes. That's sort of my preference. And sometimes I like to use, actually, acoustic hats. So let's see if we can get a nice acoustic hat loop in there. That's dope. So we're going to cut it to make it do the job that we want, basically, and we're going to tweak the sort of shape of it with an EQ. So let's see, one at a time. Switch this to mono. So the shape, what am I talking about? Well, we're going to take these sorts of highs out, and we're going to replace it with straight air. Because I really want the listener to feel this rhythm. I want the high end to be like rhythmic, basically. And then we're going to cut all of this too. We don't need all of this. I love this, but this sounds like an ending bit to me. So maybe we'll have this be for the fourth bar, and then we could just simply loop this first half. Or actually even right there. Now, with our drum group, let's see how it sounds. Okay, right idea. It's super offbeat right now. Hold on. What the hell? What the hell, LeBron James? What's going on here? I guess because it's acoustic, it's not fully on the grid. Perhaps. We'll just have to go in and slice it individually. Let's take this guy and we'll nudge these fellas over just a smidge. Okay, now watch this idea. Ready? We're gonna throw on Valhalla Vintage Verb, and we're gonna use one of these ambient presets, and we're going to like drum air, and this will kind of glue together the sample and make it sound less choppy. Sweet. Bring it down a little bit though. Okay, now it's just better on the grid. Okay, perfect. Let's finish out the drop because we still haven't touched effects. And by the way, I did that intentionally, something that might help you guys, and it definitely helped me a lot in the beginning, and I still do it, is I try to make my drop sound big without effects, because effects could definitely be a cop-out. You know, you add a downlifter, you add a crowd, texture, it always makes it sound bigger. But if you can make it sound big before adding all that, you're usually in a good spot. So now that I'm happy with the overall, I guess, bigness of this drop, I'm going to go ahead and add some effects in. So I've got my sort of diamond down. This one's kind of lasery and is more of like a resonant texture. I'm so sorry. Hold on. I'll have to lower that in post. That was extremely loud. So because of that, I like to layer with these sort of textures, a typical white noise exhaust kind of sound. So we're going to go ahead and get that right in there. Now, I have a combo I've been liking lately. I like to use, there we go. So I like to use, like, let's say an exhaust like this, and then I layer that with white noise. And then I layer that with a texture downlifter. That's like my little formula. Now, another fun thing to do with progressive house is crashes. Crash effects in particular. Now, I technically, because it's a crash, I like to consider it a part of my drum group, but in a sense, it does act as an effect. So this has enough impact. So I'm just going to slide this over and throw it here. And this will kind of keep my effects group from sounding slow or boring, right? Because this happens, this is interesting, kind of goes on. And instead of it just cutting like that, we've got more spice coming in. And then again, we don't want things to get boring. I could just simply start adding a riser here. Let's use my OG riser, my OG halfway drop riser. So when I say halfway, I refer to like the halfway point in the drop. And I use this all the time. And it started with identity. And then this will be the end of the drop, obviously, so I'm not going to have this melody repeat here. I'll just Go like that. Alrighty, folks. So overall, I'm very, very happy with the progress that we've made today on this idea. I think the only thing that we have to do now is to make a little build-up to tie this idea together. And then I'm going to call it reps because my ears are definitely starting to be fried a little bit. So the first order of business, let's find exactly where we're going to make our build. I think for this idea's sake, just so that it's quick and easy, why don't we do this? Why don't we remove all of this? And then we'll nudge this over. And then our hands up moment will be the drop, in a sense. Or, excuse me, our hands up moment, when the big synths come in, will also be the build-up. That's what I meant to say. Okay, very cool. I also just realized I did nothing with this halfway fill. And that's another session problem. Because that's going to take some creativity and some finesse that I just don't have in my reservoir right now. What we are going to do, though, is we're gonna make this build up nice. So what we're going to do, we're just going to create some empty slots up here. We're going to head over to my mix bus, and we are going to add a fruity balance. We'll add a Simplon, and we'll make sure we put the fruity balance last, and then maybe an endless smile too. Sometimes I like doing the endless smile. Actually, I'll say this. Lately, I like doing endless smile on the individual tracks only, but I might as well just have it there. If I don't use it, I don't use it. It's not the end of the world. The biggest thing that I want to do first and foremost is on the mix bus, I just want to turn the whole build-up down. It's really loud. Okay. Now on the leads, I definitely know I like to use Endless Smile and Simplon for sure. So that little trio that I just mentioned, we'll throw on here as well. Okay, now for this trio, what I'm going to do is we'll create an automation clip for the, for the fruity balance, for the volume control. And then we'll use Endless Smile. And then the next two things that I'm going to automate are high pass, low pass filter. Like this and like this. Now it's time for some of the chord group elements. We're going to do something very similar. Just high pass, low pass, basically. We'll also turn off the sidechain here. Reese is next on the chopping block. Just need a filter, basically. We'll high pass it. And since this is almost acting as like a filler build, I'm not really going super into the weeds right now with detail. I'm kind of doing the simple stuff, but like one thing in particular on Reese bases that could be cool is opening up the cutoff, even going crazy with like Endless Smile and like some other fun transition tools, just because it is like a pretty big part of the buildup. But for right now, it's kind of being lazy and just getting the fundamentals down. Absolute cash money. Now we're going to just get some quick risers and call it a day, folks. Where is my tube riser? I love this guy. D should work. We could go to B, but I want to try moving this to B, actually. It does sound better in B, so that'll stay. And then maybe Twisted Pong Riser. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So I think that'll wrap up our little idea here for today. Let's take a listen from the top, and let's see what I came up with. Well, there you have it, guys. Episode 59 is a wrap. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell so you're notified the next time I upload. Be sure to check out my Patreon for a bunch of different goodies. We got lessons, feedback, much more, sample packs. Also going to be dropping a sample pack collection. More info on that soon, but all of that can be found in the link below. So that'll be all for me today. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video.